Hello, everybody. This is 88.7 WRCU FM New Brunswick, and you are listening to Brunch Break with Nala and Prathigna.
What's up, guys? And Prathigna has a different voice because she lost it, but honestly, I'm really feeling it. I told Nala it's so raspy now. You know that episode in Friends where Phoebe Buffay loses her voice?
I love it.
And she keeps asking Mana to get her sick. That's where I'm at right now. So this is episode number 4, and you're listening to Alone But Not Lonely. And a little anecdote about this episode. I was in Barnes & Noble. I was just going to get a cup of coffee for my internship, and I stopped by like this book section in front of the Starbucks. And it had all these self-care kind of books. Like it had Mark Manson's, I think that's his name, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep, and his next book, and all those kind of self-help books. And there's one called How to Be Alone. What is it? Do you have the title? I really don't know where the title is.
I'll find it and then share it.
Okay, so it's basically like how to be alone even when you don't want to be alone. And I kind of just was dumbfounded. I was like, oh, do we really need a book on this? Is that really where we're at now, society? Like, we need a book on how to be alone and take time for ourselves and not be dependent on everyone. And when I posted that on my Instagram story, someone came at me in my DMs and they were like, yeah, ... now more than ever. And that kind of opened up a new topic and a conversation for something deeper and something bigger. And it kind of opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just looking at this in my perspective and even Nala's perspective, where we were kind of born being like kind of independent. You know, we were born with that sense of awareness where we're both okay with being alone, but also, you know, take time for other people too. But I didn't realize that it's quite an epidemic, especially in this digital age, for other, you know, millennials, Gen Zers, and just people in general who are kind of, you know, having all these distractions on top of social media, distractions on top of, you know, just any distraction. You can call it family, you can call it friends, you can call it Instagram, whatever it is. I didn't realize people actually struggled with this. Even like successful people, influencers, the people that you think are the happiest or the most accomplished in life. So it kind of really opened my eyes, and I realized I was kind of an ignorant, sardonic thought to have, the fact that, oh, shouldn't this be, you know, a norm? But when I posted on my Instagram, it kind of, again, opened up room for discussion. And a lot of my followers, a lot of people that I call really close friends answered. And I really liked reading through all of their responses. So I think I'm just going to read through some of them I got. It's a lot, but honestly, it's fulfilling. It was like an eye opener.
I think let's read through one or two.
Yeah,
kind of
one or
talk
two
about it.
Yeah, and we'll
definitely
go
worth
for
it. I think when you share those type of discoveries that you make in those interests, even if it stems from somebody like ripping you a new one from the beginning, you end up learning so much about other people.
Yeah.
And how you said in this digital age, very so often we think that everybody has it so put together. So I'm sure that reading something like that is, a lot of people could benefit from it.
So I'm going to read the first one, the one that kind of opened my eyes. I said, expound, please. And they were like, there is an attention crisis, attention we pay to each other and ourselves. Without knowing it, it's our most valuable asset since it affects pretty much everything we do. And yet a lot of our own attention isn't even owned by us as much. Everything in that brain picture, he's talking to the cover of the book, How to Be Alone, because it shows a brain filled with all these distractions, segmented. Social media, lights, colors, there are distractions everywhere. Time spent, some is meditative, and a lot of people don't know how to come to terms with it. People are uncomfortable with being alone. So yes, I think it is important for people to make an investment in spending time with themselves sooner rather than later. So when I unpacked this, I was like kind of taken aback. I was like, yes, I guess we do have an attention crisis. I didn't really think that social media was that much of a distraction, just because, again, I'm going to keep using me and Nolan as an example, because we both know that social media is just, you know, the highlights of our lives. We both don't know what's going on in each other's lives just through social media, because there's a lot going on that's far from pretty, that's far from positive and, you know, bright. So I what do you think? I do think there's an attention crisis. I like the way they put it, that there's distractions everywhere, lights, colors, even the good things, even the bad things. So it kind of stemmed from, or it was rooted in what I asked. I'm like, do we really need this book? And again, it kind of opened up a larger discussion about how to be alone and what are some valid ways to be alone. What are some good routines, and how do we do that? And it's easier said than done, I think, Nala.
I think that the first step to being okay with being alone is recognizing those distractions. It's different for everybody, you know?
Kind of like knowing that you have a drinking problem. You have to admit that you have a drinking problem.
Like, ooh, I spent a little too much time on Instagram. Like, I'm bugging out.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
For sure.
That I think the first step is when you finally get a chance to sit down and reflect. And that means, like, you finished your homework. You finished... you're chilling, you're finally on your own. What is that thing that you're craving that may not be healthy? What is that thing that you need so badly? What is that thing that you can't get off of, even if you're not benefiting from it? Mm-hmm. So knowing those distractions, knowing what it is that kind of stops you from focusing on you is definitely an important initial step into being okay with being being comfortable with being alone, and being okay with not always being surrounded by those distractions, whether it be lights,
Yeah.
That is something that people could be attracted to a little bit too much. Social media is one of the obvious ones. So obvious.
Yeah.
Being in a group of friends. I know that if you kind of grow up in that popular crew, or even not, if you
just
grow
a
up
bubble.
In a little bubble with your friends, just knowing how to step out of that. Being alone, I think, in a sense, also is about learning how to step out of your comfort zone. To be alone, I don't think necessarily means to always be physically alone.
Yeah.
But how about traveling? Travel by yourself and meet people. You're not alone the entire time. Obviously, you're meeting people, you're gaining all of these new experiences. But again, that sense of you took the initiative to do something by yourself. Boom, exactly. You started something alone. And now you're continuing an experience through pursuing something that you began alone. I think is very essential in that comfortability.
Yeah, and again, as one of my, commentators said, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's no other way to do it except getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of that bubble. And, part of that distraction, social media is an obvious one, but some other like non-obvious ones are probably routine, scheduling, constantly on the go, or it could be the complete opposite where you're just going with the flow, going with the wave, going with people, and everything. I don't know what's
So Pratigna's gonna cue up a song while I kind of go on a little rant right now.
Go for it.
And I obviously need to get a little better at signaling. I think my nonverbals are disgustingly terrible.
That wasn't even nonverbal. That was straight up whisper. And I can't do two things at once, especially on air. I can do two things at once anytime after the station. But for some reason, when I come to the station, I just am only a one thing doer girl. I don't even know how to say that. Well,
technically, my photojournalism professor was kind of elaborating on this. You're never really doing two things at once. You're kind of just hip-hopping from something every other little millisecond. But that's besides the point. So I think that during this episode, we're going to go through, Pratigna has some amazing points that we're going to bring up, just to kind of tie this to some articles, some scientific facts, being alone, but not being lonely it's not a new topic. It's something that people have been studying for ages. We're going to talk about the benefits of being alone, but also what are the positives and the negatives of being alone. We are going to talk about what it is to be alone. How can you be alone? That I just said that I totally lost my train of thought again. Different forms of being alone.
Yeah.
Being physically alone isn't always the only form of being alone. Exactly. So we're going to get into that. There's a couple questions that we asked, a couple comments we're going to read.
Yeah, we have a lot to unpack. This is a very, it's a very generic topic, but I think it can resonate with everybody in all aspects of their life, relationships. And I think, we're excited to get into it, and we're excited to see what everyone has to say. So here are some songs that'll hopefully ignite some self-care, some self-love kind of a vibe. So enjoy. We are back.
It's Tuesday. It's currently 2:21 over here in New Brunswick, and it is a beautiful day outside. So,
ooh, a little weather flex in there.
Little weather flex. So let's just get right back into it. So, Prathigna.
Yes. Oh, this deep sigh I'm here for.
There's I think the first thing that we should talk about is an introvert versus an extrovert, because the first thing that you should know about yourself in terms of learning what you like and you don't like, and who you want to be around and who you don't want to be around, is how much can you handle? What do you like? What are your desires? So obviously, for those that don't know, an introvert is more somebody who likes to be inside to themselves with their close-knit circle. And an extrovert is somebody who loves to be outside. They're with the crowd. They're typically Libras, which, by the way, Libra season started yesterday. And then there's a really fun few of us that fall right in between.
Right.
And nobody ever talks about that.
Okay, go for it. I know you have something to say.
Okay, because you could have spoken. I think that when you fall in between, you're the type of person who obviously enjoys being out, but you also have a short social battery. And that's something to know. Like, when is it, like, for example, me.
Yeah.
I love being outside. I love chilling with people, but also, like, I know when my battery is out. I know when it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
And that's important to know when your limits and know when you have those limits, so that you know when to go, so that you're not the Debbie Downer of the group, so that you're not being passive.
Yeah.
And so that you could actually get a good experience out of that. And you're, like, if you stick around, if the party ends, it starts lit and you're having fun, and then you don't want to be there anymore, and instead of taking an Uber home, you stick around.
Yeah. You're
going to end up thinking, like, damn, it was a terrible night. I'm so upset I did that.
So I love this, because what you said about when you're in the middle, I feel like there's two personalities when you fall in the middle of being an introvert and an extrovert. So hear me out. You say, when you kind of get burnt out, you kind of just burnt out.
Yeah.
That's one type, I think. Then the second type, I think it's more along my lines, where you keep pushing. Keep pushing, manic. Like, you keep pushing and pushing, making it work, and you kind of make yourself think it's working when the world, it's kind of like that meme where the little dog is like in a fire and he's like, everything's okay, everything is fine. That is me 24/7. Like, I don't even know I'm pushing myself until people have to have an intervention with me that tells me I need to take time for myself. So I think there's two types within being half introvert, half extrovert. You kind of are too accommodating, or you burn out, and both lead to so many bad things for yourself. So I think it's good to find a healthy dose of balance, something in between, get at your center, do some meditating, do something. But yeah, I think
also realizing that you may fall in the middle, but that's not everybody.
Exactly.
Some people are very introvert and some people are very extrovert. And so respecting how people like to separate their time. I know that sometimes it's really easy to get frustrated if you're super extrovert and you love going out, and your alone time is your time with your friends. Like, your time to chill is that. But your friends don't really want to go out. Or the opposite. You want to be in, but your friends rather go out all the time.
Yeah.
Understanding that everybody wants to have their time spent differently, I think, is also a really essential step in being okay with being alone. Because sometimes when you're alone, it's not by choice.
Yeah.
And so it could often get so frustrating when your friends are like,
most of the time when you're alone, it's not by choice.
Facts.
That's something we'll get into, how to make your alone time a choice.
Facts.
Because you're pushed into these situations. I think we're like breeded almost to always have somebody, to find somebody, especially women. I heard the stand-up comedian say, girls were raised to find somebody and men were raised to be somebody. And I think that was such, it hit home, because I'm like, wait, that's so right. I feel like we are constantly trying to depend on other people. That's why we have this movement. We have this third wave feminist movement where self-care, self-love, independence, but also knowing when to depend on somebody, because you're going to burn out. I think that's just as healthy. You can't be too much of everything. And I firmly believe in that. So
amen to that.
So digressing, time, when we talked about time and managing time time is money. And, you know, if you listen to our previous money episode, we got into actual money, but this is something a little less tangible. Time is so important to everybody. You have to value everyone's time, and somebody's priorities might not add up with yours, and that's okay. And if you're alone, forced to be alone, get a hobby, get some passions, because that really should put into perspective that you need a better life for yourself.
For a fact.
And sorry, my voice is almost gone, but I think we can also touch base, you know, moving into further, just giving a little tease on like our parents. You know, when your parents get married too young, this is a very specific example, they never had time to be on their own. They never had time to figure out what they wanted to do. So all they know is being a mother. All they know is being a father. So when they have empty nest syndrome, or when they're out of, you know, their kids' lives, what are they going to do? They fall into like this sad, lonely life, and it's kind of worrisome. It's like, Ma, go find a hobby, go find another job that you love. But they don't even know what that is, because they were tasked with survival mode, not like self-discovery. Like, we have the privilege. Us millennials, us Gen Zers, we have the privilege of having time alone by choice. And that's something that is so hard to, you know, realize, because it's something we take for granted. I know it's something I took for granted until literally the second.
I think also because a lot of the times when people have time alone, I don't think they realize that time is your time.
Grow.
It's, you know, like, especially, let's say college culture, for example. Mm-hmm. You always have these assignments hanging over your head. And so when you are alone, you never, like, you don't feel like you're alone. You kind of feel like those loans are dangling over, like, girl, make sure that you get this A.
Oh,
because,
my God, yeah. Get
you know
this
what
done.
I mean?
Do this homework.
Yeah, like, you're always on the run. You're always feeling so pressured to get so much done that, that you feel guilty for having that time alone. And so, like you said, being aware that you do have the advantage of being alone, that is a privilege to actually have time to be alone. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah, and I think college is such a great, don't waste these 4 years on not being alone, because you're meant to grow. You're going to learn so much about yourself in these 4 years. And again, as you said, Nala, like, it's important. You don't realize that you are taking this for granted. You feel guilty. And that's something I felt too. I love Netflix. I'm a movie buff. I used to watch my alone time, my routine, my self-love routine, whatever. It was watching romantic comedies every night last year and the year before. But recently I've gotten to the point where I've been so busy, I feel guilty if I even take time to watch a Netflix episode, or I feel like, oh, I'll put this off for later when I'm in the mood. You know, you're kind of forcing yourself to kind of put everything off just because, oh, I have to do this reading assignment. Oh, I have to meet up with a friend. I might never see her again. You're going to see her again, probably tomorrow. Everything's fine. The world is not ending. So it's this like self-inflicted guilt that you put on yourself constantly, especially in college culture. So because everything is going.
I love that you pointed out that it's self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times, even for me personally, I do it to myself. Yeah. Like, everybody's, granted, like, I have a reason to stress, but I'm sure that I can minimize it to an extent. And so it is a lot of times self-inflicting. You do it to yourself.
Exactly. So this is going to bring up another self-help book I'm currently reading. I have not had the time to, because I feel guilty that I'm taking time to read. It's, again, Mark Manson's This Little Art of Not Giving a Bleep. You know the actual name. Everyone does. If not, just look it up.
Not giving a fudge, chocolate fudge.
Chocolate fudge. I'm hungry now. He said, there's a lot of problems. Life is all about having problems and stress. It's about picking which problems you want to make less of a problem, minimizing those problems, which ones are important. So I like that you said that. Everyone's busy, but take time.
I think with that being said, we could also point out the different forms of being alone.
Oh, for sure.
So one thing that you pointed out that I thought was really interesting when we were talking about this off air was, don't just go off the grid. If you're going to be alone, because you need to take your time, say that. And if you're going to be alone in the sense of like, okay, I'm going to cut off this particular group of people or whatever the case may be, say something. Communicate that you're going to be alone so that people could understand. Not so that you could get pity, but so that they could understand where you're coming from, so that they could respect that you need time,
because I think,
and not overstep their boundaries.
Yeah. I wanted to say this really good, quick point, because I feel like in this culture, in this era, as millennials, as Gen Zers, I'm going to keep using those words because they're hot words. And honestly, we're succumbing to this kind of era. So basically, we are entitled to our feelings. We just think we can cut people off and not give any sense of validation or a sense of accommodation to anyone around us that we genuinely care for. We're like, okay, this is the type of self-care we're not promoting here. We're not saying, oh, I need self-care, so I'm going to cut everyone off without any kind of comment. Like, that's just kind of entitlement speaking. You know, everyone's going through things. The least you could do is give a heads up to people that you care about or people that care about you. So with that being said, again, I feel like this generation is very entitled to their feelings, that they matter more than anybody else and their problems are a little bit more worse than everybody else's. Like, that needs to be kind of canceled, you know? So again, it's that idea of giving a heads up. And if you're going to go off the grid, tell a few people that you really want to tell. You don't have to tell the world, but just tell a few people.
Now, in terms of ghosting, because obviously, because on the other hand, you also don't need to explain yourself to everybody.
You don't, exactly. So that's what I said.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of ghosting, though, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you avoid the guilt of being alone when you cut somebody off in that form?
Well, who are you ghosting? Someone you care about, or just some random person you met on a dating app, or someone you met on the streets, you know, a friend or an acquaintance or someone that you have in class? It depends on the relationship and the value you place and the value they place on your relationship. So I think it just depends on that. And, you know, ghosting, haunting, stalking stories, I think that's a topic that we can really delve into when we talk about social media and stuff like that. And, you know, the digital era, the Facebook era. But it's everyone to realize that that's not all that is. And again, it's a sense of entitlement. You know, always try to explain and be honest with the people that you're trying to cut. I mean, you want to cut them, go cut them, but don't feel guilty about it.
Not physically.
Yeah, don't cut anybody physically, but don't feel guilty about it if you're going to cut them without any validation for them. So that's that.
Now, I also kind of wanted to get into the benefits of being alone. So obviously one of them being that you could get away from toxic people and the people that you don't think benefit you in whatever way, shape, or form. Also being able to sit down, self-reflect, learn about yourself, knowing your habits, the good ones and the bad ones. You know, when you have that time alone, like I said, and you find yourself picking up the phone so often or whatever the case is, you know what your good and your bad habits are. Another benefit that I think is super essential is that you have space to make mistakes without disappointing anybody or hurting anybody's feelings or affecting somebody else's well-being or productivity or whatever the case is. I think that when you take time to be alone, you leave less room for your mistakes to have collateral damage, which is so important. But what do you think? Are there any other benefits that...
Like benefits of what, being alone?
Of being alone.
Yeah, I think the benefits of being alone, and you're self-aware. You're kind of exposed to the bigger picture of your life. You're not... I think distractions are easily the same thing as escapes. So you're not using escapes as a way to, you know, kind of have a less stressful life. I think, again, it's that idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable with being alone, then keep being uncomfortable until you get comfortable. And that's how you're going to grow as a person. That's how you're going to kind of have these revelations, these epiphanies about what's going on really in your life, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. I think, obviously, that you can't have too much of everything, as I keep saying. So we can go to the negatives of being alone. Again, if you're too alone, are you socially awkward, or
did you forget how to be social? Because that's definitely possible and something that we've been dealing with a lot in society.
Yeah. You know, in a society that we're so connected, we are just as disconnected. So, I think some of the negatives are probably just not realizing that you have to kind of be a communicator. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. Of course it does. For thing that just whispered, I heard you. She's like, what is going on? What is going on is that we're going to be taking a little break, and then we're going to come back and really get into the negatives, dive deep a little bit more, and we'll also get into how to deal with that. Relationships. What are these different methods that you can and cannot take? What are the routes that are beneficial or not beneficial towards being alone? That was such a awkward little...
No, you killed it. I think you didn't have to bring it back. Now you get to remind people.
Cool. So yeah, with that being said, again, everybody, this is 88.7 WRSU FM New Brunswick, and we are going to play Rockstar 101 by the one, the only, Rihanna.
And we are back. I just wanted to plug in the past two songs, or the past three songs. What was it? Young Hearts Run Free by Ralph, and Young Hearts Run Free by Cindy. Called someone. You'll find out. I don't know. Shout out to Nala's mom, Rosemary, who thinks I'm not here because of my voice. I just lost it. It's not two Nalas talking.
I don't know. I've been listening to us over these headphones. I have them on ultra loud.
Wait, you sound like you're sick all the time then. You just have that raspy voice.
I just literally sound like a man.
No. It's really sexy. I think this is my favorite voice of all time. Ask anybody who knows that when I get sick, I just want to be more sick.
Prathikna texted me last night. She's like, I don't ever want, like, cough in my face. I don't ever want this cold to go away. Like, I love it.
I know.
I'm like, girl, what?
I'm just that type of person. Like, I'm not even sick. It's just my voice is
It's
gone.
just your voice is gone. Yeah, because I was even thinking to myself, you're not caught. You literally was just too lit.
Yeah. And okay. I mean, I was getting over a cold. Let's not say that on air. Let's not expose me like that.
Every time I go out, even if I'm not like crazy lit, I lose my voice. I don't know, even if I'm not screaming.
I love it. It's great. This voice was like a godsend.
Do you talk to yourself when you're alone?
I've been singing to my roommates Frank Sinatra nonstop.
I love it.
Like deep tenor voices.
I love it.
But we are back. The first song that you listened to was Lonely by Tyler, the Creator, and Jaden Smith.
Yes.
Correct.
And again, this is 88.7 WRSU FM New Brunswick.
In case you forgot.
Yep, Brunch Break with Nala and Prathikna, episode 4, titled Lonely But Not Alone, right? Alone but not lonely. I was like, that's not rolling off my tongue, and that sounds ratchet.
I wanted to cut you off, and I kind of want to see how far you'll go.
Yeah. And as I'm saying that, I'm like, But before we left, we were talking about the negatives of being alone. We pointed out the anxiety that you could build when you're alone, and also forms of being alone. I know that, Prathikna, there was one interesting point that you brought up in terms of relationships and being alone.
Yeah, I think when people think about being lonely, they think, or alone too, they think about, oh, I'm single. So I wanted to differentiate and kind of do a little PSA. You know, how to be alone is not, quotes, how to be single. Those are two separate things. And I think me and Nala have enough experience to talk about it and delve into how those two are separate things. So, Nala, what do you think about, the difference between that?
I think that to be alone is to know yourself, to be able to be comfortable in your own skin, to not be dependent and reliable on those that are around you, to still... I didn't mean reliable. That was the wrong word. To not be dependent on those around you. To still be able to rely on people, but to know that you could also hold yourself up on your 2 feet. I don't think that you need a partner in order to feel whole.
Yeah.
I think that, in fact, you are your most whole, and your relationship is probably at its most wholesome when the two separate entities know how to be alone.
Yeah. So this goes into when I was writing notes, and I noted that whole plus a whole equals a half. This is math.
Wow.
And a whole plus a half does not equal a whole.
And it equals a whole and a half?
Yeah. It's not a full person. It's not two full people. Wow. It's not complete. Only a whole and a whole
can make two.
It can make two wholes. A half of a person and a half of a person is just not, it's not a whole. That's not how in relationships, that's not how math works.
That's not how it works anywhere. 1 + 1 = 2, and that is just simple math. And so always just remembering that me plus you is supposed to create this beneficial experience.
Mutual, experience.
But us intertwining each other and, like you're saying, putting in half and knowing each other.
Yeah, that's not going to work. You need to be 1 + 1 so you can be 2 or fish, whatever you want. But listen, you can't, that's the only rule that followed. But the other rule that works in math, which is a half plus a half equals 1.
Yes.
You don't want to just be 1 because you're 2 whole people. This is when I only passed basic algebra.
You have to see me right now, though. I'm struggling. Listen, I'm like, wait.
Thank God this is not a video. You guys can't see me counting with my fingers. But again, it's the idea of like when you're alone, you have to find yourself at a whole. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to love someone else?
Yeah, facts.
So
if you don't know yourself, how do you expect that person to know you?
Exactly.
Teach you.
And why are you going to give your baggage and put it on somebody else's baggage? You know,
I think
fix your own baggages.
I was just having this conversation the other day in terms of you having your own baggage. So whatever God you have built your muscles for you to carry this baggage. These bags were given to you.
Gucci,
for
Prada,
you to carry.
Kate
Gucci,
Spade.
Prada, I don't care. Hermes, I don't care what it is.
Hermes.
I don't care what it is. They were given to you for you to carry. You've been working out all your life through all of those experiences so that you could carry these bags. Now, for you to put them on somebody else, for you to say, I don't know how to be without you. I need you. I can't do
Fix me.
You
heal
can't
me. Be my therapist.
My muscles were only built to carry my bags.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, my hands are literally full with my stuff. Now I'm here to assist you. I'm here, literally,
like a personal. Those assistants in those high-end luxury stores. Like, can I help you?
Can I help you?
Yes, that's how it should be.
Yeah, facts. Always remembering, if you go and you buy your groceries, you're not gonna give your brother, your sister, all of your groceries. They're gonna smack you. No, you're gonna ask them for help. Because this is your responsibility. So just remembering that everybody's muscles were built to deal with the things that they were handed to them. You can't put your well-being on somebody else. I think that to not be alone, one of those negatives to not know how to be alone, and it comes in a domino effect. Obviously, it's not like this right off the bat. Is that after a while, you end up putting a lot of yourself onto somebody else.
Yeah.
And you begin to expect people to, I don't want to say handle you.
But kind of you have these high
dictate
expectations.
You.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a personality trait instead of things that you're going through. Don't let bad things or whatever your baggage dictate who you are as a person, therefore dictating your partner or your friend or family. We're here to assist. Everyone should help each other. That's humanity. But I think putting emotional heaviness is the worst kind of burden you can put on someone. Both, it's supposed to be a give or take. Not one is supposed to have a role. No one is supposed to be I'll be the emotional support and you can take care of bringing the bread or whatever. Oh my God, yeah. So we just forgot to turn on something.
Totally wasn't recording.
Yeah, anything. I'm glad you remember because I didn't.
Yeah, I've been trying to record more of our content because I know that a couple of our listeners, they'll tune in for a couple minutes, either at the beginning or at the end, and they've been expressing that they want some sort of form where they could get more content. So I've been trying to record, but it's just a lot. It's a lot sometimes. I'm sorry.
I'll step it up next time. I'll be in charge of this and remind you.
It's just a lot of responsibility.
Guys, I had a whole gyro platter, and I told Nala before getting into the station, once I eat, I cannot function. I'm in a food coma. But I'm waking up because this is some serious ish, and we're gonna get into it. So again, being alone is not being lonely. So we can delve into relationships, Nala.
Relationships. Relationships are always one of those sticky topics for me as a woman because I've realized that when you become in a relationship, people don't see you as one anymore. All of a sudden, everything has to do with your significant other, involves your significant other. And when you're working so hard to be your own person and to find out the person that you are, it becomes very frustrating when people won't recognize you as that. When your relationship starts to, I don't want to say exemplify, what's the word I'm looking for? Is the symbol of who you are.
Yeah.
I think that embodies who you are. As a woman, a lot of times that's just not the wave. It's, you know what I mean? And so another thing that kind of taking that and tying it into being alone is that when you are single, there are times where you will almost feel like, I need somebody so that I'm not alone.
Like a checklist.
For example, So obviously I'm super independent. Being single is the wave. It's Libra season, so I'm extra
I think I'm just trying to be a single icon at this point.
No,
just
but
an icon for all single women.
Talk about self-made. But then, when you're single for a long time, I feel like after a while too, you almost start to think oh, look at how happy everybody is
Yeah.
because they are alone, but they have that one person. They have that one person who's just always there. So one of the things that I wrote in terms of kind of combating the negative effects of being alone is to have one select person who is your go-to in terms of when you need to vent, when you want to talk about something. If it's like,
yeah, I love
oh
that.
my God, I'm losing my mind and I need to go on a drive, I need a cup of coffee, whatever it is, having your one person.
Yeah.
And for a lot of times, that's a significant other.
It really is. Someone there unconditionally for you.
Yeah, you know, with no envy, no, like you said, unconditional, no exceptions. And that could be so comforting when you're alone because the only other person that could treat you like that is you.
And your dog.
And your dog.
Your loyal dog.
And your parents if you're blessed.
Yeah. Oh, facts.
Because not everybody has that. And so,
yeah.
I do think, so I'm really like 50-50 about the relationship thing. I think that if it works for you in the sense of combating loneliness, then that's cool. Get in a relationship, but don't get in a relationship because that's what you need.
Yeah.
Because you feel lonely. You don't need that. You don't need a relationship to kind of validate your feelings and to validate your time being spent.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a plus. Kind of like pick up a book first, see if that's working out for you.
Adopt a pet or something.
Yes.
If you want companionship, that's not the right reasons to go into a relationship for.
Amen. Companionship.
Exactly.
Yes.
If you want like a therapy dog, go get a therapy dog. If you want a therapist, go find a therapist for free. I'm sure there's like online situations going on. But I'm just saying, like, there's good and bad reasons to want to get into a relationship. I think it shouldn't, being alone, being single should be a choice.
Amen.
It shouldn't be something you're forced to do. And of course, we're not trying to invalidate all the other single girls out there or any, cuffed girls, women, men, whatever you want to call. You are allowed to feel lonely. That happens, but don't force yourself or make your, kind of wire your mind to thinking, oh my God, like, will I ever find someone? I have my life planned out. I have my job planned out. I have my ambitions planned out. All I need is someone. So it comes to the point where you think your life is like a checklist. And I'm kind of projecting because this is me. When all these things are working out for you in other departments, you kind of want to check that last mark off, whether it be a relationship or, friends with benefits or a job or a friend. You kind of want to fulfill that. And that's okay, but just realize that's not the right reasons to get into it.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. And so that's obviously one of the ways that you could know how to be alone in the sense of, all right, not to rely on that companionship, but that if you pick it up, it could help you out.
Yeah.
Also thinking it's obviously 120% okay to be alone.
120%.
Yeah.
You're so extra.
Here for it. Facts. But don't be in the dark 24/7 if you're going to be alone, both physically and metaphorically. Don't always be in the dark. Be aware. Be in light. Be, if you're going to be alone, then at least be looking at the news. Check social media a little bit here and there. Know what's going on.
Yeah.
Outside, socially, physically, like
environmentally, economically. Like, again, what we said before, we touched on this, Nala. If you're alone, you have to grow. Being alone, as you defined it, is you growing. So you're not going to grow if you're just going to be in your bed all day or if you're just cutting people out. Like, being a toxic person yourself. Yes. You have to grow into someone positive and someone you see yourself.
And so another way to grow is to socialize. Like, kind of like I told you, speak to one new person every day.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I have not done that. I just speak to the same people.
You should try.
I know, I will. Maybe today.
Maybe. It could be anybody. It could literally, like, be as small as, instead of ordering from the kiosk at Panera. Kiosk, baby. Instead of ordering at the kiosk in Panera, why don't you have the associate help you? Or
I love that. Yeah,
it could literally be that small scale.
Yeah.
Also, drinking a lot of water. That just sounds so basic, but that, like, look at her thing that as she grabs her thermos, being that asthma though, right? That's what it's called. Being hydrated. I know it sounds hella basic, but when you're full with water, you're cutting out all of those toxins. Like, it's outside, inside. just staying hydrated so that you always have the energy to be on the move.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you're alone all the time and you begin to run the risk of being lonely a lot and forming that sort of anxiety and depression, you drain your energy being so negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so something as simple as water, something as simple as being hydrated could give you just that little bit more of energy you need so that you can step outside and get some light, or so that you can decide to walk down the street and get food instead of ordering in.
I like that you brought those up because these are all healthy habits to change your lifestyle. If it was kind of, poor before, talking to associates instead of relying on technology and kiosks, giving more of that communication aspect to real people, drinking water, changing your life habits, what you eat, the things that you put in, whether it's something you can eat, drink, or just energy. Surround yourself with good things, and most of the time good things will happen in time. It's not going to happen all of a sudden, but I think that's a good point that you brought up, changing your lifestyles. And I think we have like some other topics. I think we kind of run its course about relationships.
Yeah, I know we're going to take a break, and during RUE we are going to extend our show to kind of intertwine the both, because this is something entertainment related. So we're definitely going to get way more into that. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you guys have to tune in because I read some of Pratigna's material in terms of this episode being alone but not being lonely. Yeah. And I am obsessed with some of the information that she found.
They're just quotes from the book that, that started it all. And we're going to talk to you guys on how to be single, not just how to be alone, but we're going to get into how to be single, practicing mindfulness. And so enjoy this song by 070 Shake.
070 Shake.
070 Shake, honey. I always say 070, but
I mean, it is what it is.
070, 007. I don't know. Enjoy the song. It's very Jersey. I love the song.
Woo! Let's get crazy!
In movies, when someone at a party jumps into a pool fully dressed, everyone cheers them on and jumps in too. Just so you know, in real life parties, nobody jumps in after you. You just look stupid.
Come on, jump in. Come on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.